There are worlds in the galaxy that should never have known life, yet they pulse with a heartbeat older than reason. Beneath skies that boil with madness, where continents shift like fevered dreams, and the air itself whispers forbidden names, children are still born. Their first breath tastes of ash and revelation. Their first cry is swallowed by a planet that listens. To be born on a demon world is to awaken already damned, a soul flickering in a storm of lies and temptation, where the laws of physics bow to the laughter of gods. Every heartbeat is a negotiation, every memory a battlefield. Flesh is mutable here. Thought is contagion, and prayer is either weapon or surrender. Somewhere, deep within the impossible horizon, the veil between reality and the Imperium is so thin it bleeds. And in that bleeding, something ancient and hungry takes notice. The first sound is not crying. It is thunder that has forgotten how to end. Beneath the crust of a living planet, deep within catacombs of breathing stone, the birth pits tremble with the rhythm of something vast exhaling. Flesh and rock share no distinction here, both pulse, both hunger, both remember. When the midwives come, if they can still be called that, their bodies shimmer with the signatures of long adoption. Their limbs are wrong in ways that defy pity, fingers tapering into wet filaments, eyes that bloom and retract like apertures. They do not speak, they hum. The sound curls through the chambers like a sedative, a lullaby sung to creation itself. The air is warm with moisture and blood. The walls are slick, pulsing gently in anticipation. When the child comes forth, it is not through pain but negotiation, a slow parting of tissue, the planet itself yielding another thought. The midwives lift it into the dim light of phosphorescent veins that run along the ceiling like constellations, soft green and violet, breathing in sequence with the newborn's heartbeat. The umbilical cord twitches like a living worm, whispering secrets to those who listen long enough. No name is given, for names have power, and power attracts attention. The child opens its eyes, though there are no eyes to open yet. Vision arrives later when the planet decides what seeing should mean. For now, it perceives through vibration, feeling the hum of the pit, the slow murmur of fluids, the distant screaming of the horizon. It does not know fear. Fear is for those who believe in safety. Here, the only law is transformation. Outside, the storm never stops. The skies churn like liquid fire, clouds folding into impossible geometries before dissolving into rain that tastes of copper and ozone. The surface of the world heaves and mutters, reshaping itself with each lightning strike. Somewhere in the distance, a tower of bone and machinery grows another level. Its machinery, powered by both steam and supplication. Servitors hang like flies around its base, whispering through rusted vox grills to an intelligence buried beneath tons of rock and theology. The midwives carry the infant to the altar of first breath. It is less a ceremony than a feeding. A chalice of luminescent fluid, distilled from the runoff of the living walls, is poured over the newborn skin. The liquid crawls like oil, seeping into pores, rewriting what is cellular and what is spiritual. The infant convulses once, not from pain, but from the shock of awareness. For a brief instant, it remembers a place of silence, a world without color or voice, a memory of the Imperium before it fractured. Then it forgets. The planet does not allow nostalgia. The midwives step back as the child begins to cry. Not a human wail, but a resonance that makes the walls tremble and the air shimmer. The sound is music to the living stone, which answers in kind. The chamber contracts, sealing the pit with a soft sigh. Somewhere deep in the substrata, the world records another birth in its neural lattice. Each soul it spawns becomes a neuron in its dreaming brain. For the first days, the infant is left within a cradle of flesh that grows from the wall. It feeds on warmth and on the whispered thoughts of the world. Sometimes the planet dreams of oceans, and the child tastes salt. Sometimes it dreams of war, and the child's heartbeat races until it can barely breathe. It is through these fluctuations that the young learn. There are no parents here, no gentle voices to guide or soothe. The planet itself educates through hunger and hallucination. When it rains, the liquid seeps through the ceiling like tears, and the world outside wails in a chorus of metallic shrieks. The infant does not know that these are the death cries of creatures caught in mutation storms, or the echoes of souls dissolving into the warp. To it, this is lullaby. The Daemon World sings to its offspring in a language of pain made beautiful through repetition. As the days bleed into one another, though time is unstable here, folding and looping like a wounded animal, the child begins to change. Skin thickens against the caustic air. Bones lengthen in silence, joints clicking softly as they reconfigure. Somewhere deep inside, the spark of sentience flares. It dreams for the first time, and in its dream it sees a figure made of gold. The image is fractured, obscured by static and light. A man, or something like a man, bound to a throne of machinery. Eyes burning like twin stars. Mouth unmoving yet resounding with command. The infant cannot comprehend the words, but the tone fills it with longing. For the briefest moment, the child's heart synchronizes with that distant rhythm, a pulse like the Astronomicon itself, bleeding faintly even into this forsaken world. Then the dream curdles. The light turns red. The golden figure's face splits into 4 directions at once, and laughter, wet and endless, floods the child's skull. It awakens screaming, the cradle walls vibrating in sympathy. Above, the storm continues. Below, something listens. On the 5th day, or perhaps the 50th, for the planet's heartbeat has no clock, the cradle opens. The walls peel back like petals, releasing the infant onto a floor slick with condensation. It crawls instinctively toward a dim light, pulsing at the far end of the chamber. There, waiting in silence, stands a creature once human, a priest of flesh, skin inked with sigils that shimmer with their own consciousness. He watches the child with an expression beyond compassion, beyond horror, something closer to awe. He lifts the child in both hands, murmuring a litany to no god recognized by the Imperium. His breath smells of incense and rust. Another thought, he whispers, another echo. He presses a small shard of glass, a data slate fragment, ancient and worn, against the child's chest. The shard fuses instantly, sinking beneath the skin, its light flickering like a dying star. The priest closes his eyes. "Remember nothing," he says. "It is safer." When he sets the child down, the flesh beneath its feet ripples like disturbed water. The planet seems to acknowledge the ceremony, a subtle vibration that passes through stone and air alike. The priest withdraws into shadow, vanishing as though swallowed by the architecture itself. The child is alone. The world hums a low note of satisfaction. It begins to crawl, its hands finding purchase on surfaces that breathe. The chamber opens into a tunnel where phosphorescent veins light the way forward. Each step is both progress and temptation. The deeper it goes, the more the air changes. Heavier, denser with meaning. Voices echo faintly in the distance, layered whispers that form words, not meant for mortals. The child cannot understand them, but the sounds ignite instinctive recognition, as though some genetic memory is being stirred. It stumbles upon the first corpse, near the tunnel's mouth. The body is half fused into the wall, face twisted in silent agony. The flesh has become architecture, veins merging seamlessly with the surrounding stone. The child stares, not with horror but curiosity. Something within the corpse still moves. A slow pulse, a flicker of light beneath translucent skin. The planet is recycling. Life and death are not distinct here. They are modes of service. The child continues forward, unaware that it has already been seen. In the shadows beyond the tunnel, shapes shift, humanoid but indistinct. They are guardians, perhaps, or predators. Their eyes glow faintly with the color of dying embers. They watch as the newborn crawls toward its destiny, the air trembling with the distant laughter of something vast and invisible. The world holds its breath. Somewhere in the upper atmosphere, lightning splits reality for a heartbeat, revealing a glimpse of the warp beyond. A roiling ocean of color and thought, pressing hungrily against the fragile membrane of matter. For a moment, the planet's surface flickers, its cities dissolving and reforming in the blink of an eye. Then silence returns. The child stops. It raises its head. Somewhere deep within its chest, the fragment of glass implanted by the priest pulses once. A whisper, not from the world, but from beyond it, stirs. It speaks no words, yet carries intent. A question, ancient and patient. Will you remember? The child's first word is not human. It vibrates through the air like an invocation, bending light and thought. The planet answers softly, almost tenderly. And thus begins the first lesson of the Daemon World, that even innocence here is weaponized, that every birth is an opening, and every breath a potential doorway. The corridors widen, growing stranger as the child moves. The walls no longer follow geometry but curve and breathe like lungs. Veins of molten light trace pathways that lead nowhere, while distant murmurs reverberate through the stone, or like memory bleeding into sound. The air grows hotter, tasting of iron and distant rain. Each breath feels alive, entering the lungs like a living thing. The child learns to walk, not in the gentle rhythm of human infancy, but in the halting animal gait of something finding shape within chaos. Muscles tighten, bones rearrange, skin ripples with momentary patterns. Glimpses of eyes or mouths that appear and dissolve across its flesh. The planet is still deciding what it wants of this life. It tests the child as a sculptor tests clay, and with each breath the form stabilizes a little more. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face that almost remembers what humanity should look like. There are others in the tunnels, shapes that shift in the half-light, watching. Some crawl along the walls, their limbs jointed wrong. Some hover just above the ground, robes trailing behind like smoke. They do not attack. They observe, waiting to see if the newcomer survives the shaping. To die before that would be an inconvenience, not a tragedy. The Daemon World allows failure, but it never wastes material. In time, the child reaches a cavern where the air hums with vibration. At its center rises a pool of liquid mirror, shimmering with impossible reflections. The surface shows not the ceiling above, but visions that twist with meaning. The glimmer of burning cathedrals, warriors in gold armor standing beneath a black sun, ships splitting apart in silence. The child approaches and kneels beside the pool, touching its surface. The reflection ripples, and the vision shifts to something closer. A figure standing where the child stands, grown and tall, eyes burning with red fire. For a moment, recognition flashes, but it is crushed beneath the weight of incomprehension. The reflection leans forward and whispers a single word, though no sound comes through the liquid. The child repeats it, unaware that it has spoken its own name. The world shivers. Somewhere in the crust, tectonic laughter echoes. The pool darkens, then clears, revealing only the child's own face, blank, unknowing, but no longer shapeless. The name has anchored it, given the planet permission to let it live. From the darkness above, a voice like dripping metal murmurs approval. "You belong now," it says. The air vibrates as if the world itself had spoken. "Remember this place. Forget everything else." Days or moments pass. The child wanders through landscapes that change as it moves. A plain of black sand that writhes underfoot becomes a forest of crystalline growths that whisper in human tongues. The stars above spin too fast, leaving trails of color like bleeding wounds across the night. The moon splits and reforms with every heartbeat. Somewhere, creatures howl, things with too many limbs, too many hungers. The sound carries both terror and comfort. Once, the child finds ruins, the skeletal remains of an Imperial outpost, half swallowed by flesh and time. Rusted manufactorum scaffolds jut from the ground like ribs. A decayed statue of the Emperor lies on its side, half buried in soil that steams with memory. The face is eroded, features melted into anonymity. The child climbs the statue's chest and looks into the hollow sockets where A's should be. For a heartbeat, something stirs behind the stone. A faint glimmer, like the ghost of faith refusing to die. The light touches the child's skin, burning faintly, and for that instant the air clears. The sky looks almost blue, the wind carries no voices, and the world seems still. Then the illusion collapses, and the storm resumes its screaming. The child does not understand what it has seen, only that it does not belong to this world. The sensation lingers, not hope, but memory of order, something alien and pure. It presses a hand to its chest where the glass fragment glows faintly beneath the skin. The shard hums in response, resonating with a rhythm that feels older than the world itself. Somewhere deep within its fractured circuits, a fragment of an Imperial data log still pulses, unreadable yet defiant. That night, the child dreams again. In the dream, the golden figure returns, but this time his face is clearer, filled with sorrow rather than light. Around him stand figures in armor the color of dying suns, the Adeptus Custodes, their guardian forms towering and silent. They watch the throne, motionless, eternal. The child feels the weight of billions of prayers pressing against that image like a tidal wave. The dream shifts and the throne dissolves into bone. From its base, tendrils of molten metal snake outward, devouring everything. The figure of gold opens his mouth, but the sound that emerges is not speech. It is the sound of a dying star. When the child awakens, its body trembles. The shard beneath the skin flickers violently, then stabilizes. Outside, dawn bleeds through the clouds, a color between rust and bruised purple. The air smells of ozone and decay. In the distance, the planet's horizon undulates like the surface of an ocean. The child walks toward it. There is no path, no goal, only the instinct to move. The The land stretches endlessly, alive in its own slow rhythm. Shapes drift across the plain. Great beasts that swim through the soil, their hides covered in sigils that pulse like living constellations. Each movement they make alters the terrain, reshaping hills and valleys behind them. As the child watches, one of the beasts stops and turns its head. A mountain of eyes and mouths, each one whispering a different language. The air trembles as the creature's gaze falls upon the small, fragile figure standing below. For a moment, the child feels itself dissolve, consciousness scattering into the wind. It is seen, and that is enough. Then, just as suddenly, the beast moves on, disinterested. The world resumes breathing. The child collapses to its knees, shaking. In that moment, something shifts within. A quiet understanding that survival here is not about strength, but invisibility. To remain unnoticed is salvation. To draw attention is annihilation. It learns instinctively to quiet its presence, to let its mind sink beneath the planet's rhythm like a shadow beneath water. Time passes in fragments. The storms lessen, the horizon steadies. The child grows, flesh hardening, thought sharpening. It begins to hear patterns in the chaos, the cadence of the wind, the deep pulse of the ground, the rhythm of distant voices carried on unseen currents. These patterns are language, not spoken but felt, and slowly the child begins to understand. The planet is teaching it. Every sound, every vibration is instruction. The lesson is simple. Everything that lives must serve something greater, and everything greater must eventually feed. At dusk, the ground opens near the child's feet, revealing a fissure filled with phosphorescent mist. From within, shapes rise, thin and robed, faces hidden by veils of flesh. They circle the child, murmuring words that sting the air. Their hands move in intricate patterns, weaving symbols that glow before fading into the ground. One steps forward and places a hand upon the child's forehead. The touch burns, but not with pain. It burns with purpose. The voice that follows is neither male nor female, neither young nor old. Remember what you are, it says. Not who, but what. The world hums louder as though listening. The fissure closes. The child is alone again, trembling with the residue of meaning it cannot yet articulate. Far above, lightning carves the sigil of a laughing god into the sky, and the planet, dreaming in its endless hunger, names this new life as its own. The storms roll endlessly, sculpting the world into new forms with each passing moment. Mountains rise and fall within days, oceans boil into mist, and the sky remains bruised with color that should not exist. The child, now moving with greater certainty, begins to understand that this chaos is not random. It breathes, it listens, it dreams. There are times when the world grows still, as if in thought, and the air thickens with the taste of copper and sorrow. During those silences, the child feels something vast stirring beneath the crust. Not movement, but contemplation. It is as if the planet dreams of itself and all who walk upon it. In those moments, the ground hums like a heartbeat, and the sky folds inward, drawing the senses toward a single, suffocating awareness. The child does not fear it. Fear is no longer useful. Fear invites notice, and notice brings attention. Instead, it lowers itself, presses its palms to the living soil, and listens. The hum resolves into words, though they are not spoken, and impressions, sensations formed into half-thoughts. Hunger, memory, renewal. The child realizes that these are the prayers of the world, and all who live here contribute to its liturgy, whether they wish to or not. Days become fluid, blending like pigments in the hand of an indifferent god. The child walks through a wasteland of bones that once belonged to things too large to imagine. The bones vibrate faintly, whispering fragments of language from ancient ages when the planet was still tethered to sanity. Words like Imperium and salvation echo faintly, stripped of meaning. The child pauses beside one massive rib, tracing its surface with small fingers. Beneath the grime and corrosion lies something carved. An imperial akala, half melted, its twin heads fused into one. The sight stirs something undefinable, a half memory of order, of purpose, of light. It hurts to remember. As night falls, a figure appears on the horizon. Not walking, but gliding, its cloak trailing behind like smoke. The child hides instinctively, pressing itself into the folds of the terrain. The figure halts near the remains of the rib and kneels, running a hand across the corrupted aquila. Its voice, when it speaks, carries the weight of rusted sermons. Another relic, it says softly. Another lie that refused to die. The child's breath catches. The voice is human, or close enough. The figure turns, its face hidden behind a mask made of bone and mirrored glass. "Come out," it says gently. "You have no need to fear me. I am not the devourer." The child hesitates, then steps into the open. The figure tilts its head, studying this small, raw thing that stands before it. "A survivor," the voice muses. "Good. The world still remembers how to be merciful." "Who are you?" The words come awkwardly. Language feels like a foreign organ in the child's mouth. "A witness," the figure replies. "Once I was a priest of the Mechanicus, now I am a listener. The machine spirits are gone, and the prayers have turned to ash. But the rhythm remains. It is all rhythm now." The mask's mirrored surface reflects the child's image, twisting it into forms that shimmer and shift, different versions of itself. Monstrous, divine, broken, whole. The reflection speaks without lips. "You are becoming what the planet remembers." The child steps back, shaking its head, but the figure only chuckles softly. "Do not fight it. The world shapes what it loves, and it loves its own echoes. They travel together for a time, or what feels like time, across plains of black glass that crackle beneath their feet. The priest speaks little, but when he does, his words carry a quiet reverence. He tells of how the planet was once colonized by the Imperium, a manufacturing world blessed by the Omnissiah's hand. He speaks of how, when the warp storms came, the Mechanicus prayed for deliverance, not realizing their faith would become a beacon. "The gods heard us," he says, voice breaking, "but not the one we sought." The child listens, understanding fragments, piecing together a history from tone rather than content. It begins to realize that this world was not always alive. It was made so, awakened by worship, reshaped by belief. The prayers of billions had not gone unanswered. They had simply been misdelivered. One night, they rest beside a fissure that glows with blue fire. The air above it shimmers like liquid glass. The priest sits cross-legged, removing his mask. His face is scarred beyond recognition, one eye replaced by a pulsing augmetic that weeps oil. He looks tired but not afraid. "You dream of the throne," he says quietly. The child nods. "It reaches even here," the priest continues. "The Astronomican's light flickers through the warped skin, a dying heartbeat echoing across eternity. The Emperor's will, or what remains of it, touches every shadow, even those claimed by chaos. Some call it mercy. I call it memory. The child tilts its head. What is mercy? The priest smiles faintly, though his eyes glisten with something like grief. A word that dies quickly here. A silence follows. The wind shifts, carrying the sound of distant screaming. Not human, not beast, but something between. The priest stands. We should move. The world is shifting again. They walk through the night as the land folds and unfolds around them. Structures rise like mirages, spires of bone, arches of metal fused with sinew. Each formation feels deliberate, as though the planet is building itself according to a design only it can comprehend. The priest hums as they move, a low monotone chant that steadies the air. The child realizes that the sound keeps the terrain still, pacified. Without it, the ground would devour them. By dawn, they reach a plateau overlooking a valley filled with moving lights. The child stares in awe. Below, a city breathes. Buildings shift and pulse, their walls of flesh and glass expanding like lungs. Rivers of luminous fluid run between them, carrying whispers in their current. The sight is terrible and beautiful, a civilization grown, not built. The priest places a hand on the child's shoulder. This is where I was born, he says softly, and where I died. The city dreams of its creators, it remembers our prayers and remakes them in its own image. The child gazes downward, entranced. Will it dream of me? It already does, the priest replies. It dreamt you before you were born. For a moment they stand together in silence, the wind howling through the warped spires. Then the priest turns and begins to descend the slope. Come, he says. If you wish to live, you must learn the city's language. The child hesitates only once before following. The shard beneath its skin glows faintly in answer, as though recognizing the rhythm of what lies ahead. The world hums in satisfaction, its consciousness stretching wide, ready to receive another thought into its endless dreaming flesh. The descent into the valley feels less like travel and more like surrender. The ground gives way beneath their feet in soft, rhythmic pulses, as if the city itself breathes them inward. The air grows thick, saturated with scent, metallic, sweet, and strangely comforting, like the blood of gods diluted in rainwater. The light shifts to something alive, emanating not from any sun or flame, but from the structures themselves. The pulse of bioluminescence echoing in harmony with the heartbeat of the planet. As they cross the threshold, sound changes. It becomes deeper, resonant, filled with the hum of a million unseen mouths whispering in unison. Words bleed into each other, half prayers and half mechanical code. The city is not silent. It speaks constantly, a susurrus of memory and demand. Every step they take sends ripples through the living street, and every ripple is answered by something beneath, acknowledging their presence. The child feels the vibration crawl up through its legs, into its spine, and behind the eyes. Images flood its mind. Scenes of the city's creation, flashes of the old world. Manufactorum halls filled with robed adepts and chanting priests. Engines burning incense and prayer alike. Then, the sky tearing open and the first storm of unreality pouring through. A world too devoted to survive its own faith. The child falls to its knees, trembling, overwhelmed. The priest kneels beside it. You're seeing its memory, he murmurs. Every wall here remembers. Every droplet of fluid contains thought. The child presses its palms against the ground. The surface feels warm, alive, and in that warmth it senses a terrible tenderness. The city loves its inhabitants as a spider loves its prey. It nurtures, reshapes, consumes. It's alive, the child whispers. The priest nods, and dreaming, always dreaming. They move deeper. The streets twist like veins, the buildings rising around them in spirals of organic symmetry. Windows blink like eyes, some watching, some dreaming. Voices echo from unseen corridors, laughter, prayer, sobbing, all blurring together into a single tone. The child sees figures moving within the walls, silhouettes of people half swallowed by architecture, still breathing, still whispering. The priest averts his gaze, but the child cannot look away. "Are they dead?" the child asks. "No," the priest says softly. "The city remembers them too fondly for that." They pass under an archway of fused bone and steel, entering what must once have been a central plaza. At its center stands a monument, a tower of flesh spiraled with metal and bone, pulsing gently with light. Symbols crawl across its surface like migrating insects, rearranging themselves into patterns before dissolving again. The priest lowers his head. "This was the Vox Spire," he says. "It used to broadcast to the stars. Now it sings to itself." The child tilts its head, listening. Beneath the hum and the pulse, it hears something more, faint, buried deep within the static. A voice. It's not the planets, it's smaller, older, fragile, a human voice repeating a single phrase again and again, "For the Emperor, for the Emperor, for the Emperor." The sound is faint, broken by interference, but the words are clear enough to wound. The child's chest tightens. The phrase means nothing, yet everything inside recognizes it. The shard beneath its skin pulses violently, sinking to the rhythm of that voice. The air trembles, the priest notices. "Quiet," he warns. The city does not like that name. But it's too late. The tower shudders, the surrounding walls rippling in fury, the air splits open with a sound like tearing metal. Faces emerge from the architecture, howling in static rage. The priest grabs the child's arm. "Run!" They sprint through corridors that reconfigure behind them, walls closing and opening like jaws. The priest's chant returns, louder this time, words in Benaric and Low Gothic, weaving together into a prayer of defiance. By the Omnissiah's forgotten spark, by the logic that once bound flesh to will. His voice crackles as if burning from the inside, but the city falters, uncertain. They reach an open expanse where the ground itself fractures, revealing veins of molten light. The priest stops, turns, and places both hands on the child's shoulders. His augmetic eye burns bright. "Listen to me, the shard inside you, it is memory. The world cannot destroy memory. Hide it, protect it. It will matter." The child shakes its head. "I don't understand." "You will," he says, smiling faintly as the city screams around them. "Or you won't. Either way, you will live." He pushes the child backward as tendrils of flesh erupt from the ground, coiling around him. He doesn't resist. His voice turns to laughter, then static, then silence. The city closes over him, swallowing him whole. The world calms instantly, its rage sated. The streets still, the light dims. The child stands alone in the aftermath, trembling, the shard within its chest glowing faintly, the only light in a dead calm. The tower's hum fades to a low, rhythmic pulse, almost a heartbeat. The words, "For the Emperor," echo once more, distant now, like the ghost of defiance buried in the blood of the world. The child walks. It doesn't know why or where. Only that motion feels sacred. The city watches silently, its countless eyes unblinking. Somewhere deep within, the world dreams again, and in its dreaming, it begins to shape something new. The air vibrates with quiet curiosity, as though the planet itself leans closer to listen to the sound of one small life continuing. At the edge of the valley, the child turns once. The city glows faintly, golden for a heartbeat, before returning to its usual pallor. A flicker of remembrance, perhaps, or merely coincidence. In the warp, such distinctions mean little. The storm, above, breaks again, thunder cracking across the horizon like divine laughter. The child lifts its face to the rain, tasting iron and warmth. Somewhere beyond the clouds, unseen and unreachable, the Astronomicon pulses faintly, a dying star trying to outshine eternity. The child closes its eyes. In the rhythm of its heartbeat, the world hums back. For a moment, they are one. And thus ends the first lesson that even in madness there is memory. That even in damnation, something sacred may still refuse to die. The first hunger is not for food, it is for silence, for stillness. For a moment when the world's heartbeat does not echo through every bone. When the child wakes, the city is gone, or perhaps only hidden, folded back into the skin of the planet like a dream retreating from daylight. The horizon has shifted again, the sky boiling in shades of bruised gold and iron gray. The air smells of charred metal and sweetness, the aftermath of transformation. The child stands alone amid plains that once were a sea. The ground ripples faintly, whispering in soft tremors beneath bare feet. The shard in its chest still glows, but faintly now, as if conserving power. Hunger gnaws deep, not just physical, but existential, a hollowing ache that spreads from stomach to soul. It remembers the priest's words, his laughter as the world devoured him, and wonders whether memory is a mercy or a wound. There is food on this world, of a kind. Fungal blooms that rise overnight from the flesh of the earth, glistening with liquid that smells like decay and life combined. The child bites into one, gagging as warmth floods its throat, but instinct wins over revulsion. The taste shifts mid-swallow, sweet, then bitter, then electric. It feels the stuff slide into its veins, altering something unseen. When it finishes, its vision sharpens. The air itself glows faintly, every particle alive with potential. Hunger recedes, but not entirely. The world always leaves a fragment behind, a reminder that satisfaction is temporary. Days pass, or what this place calls days, and the child wanders. The storms chase the horizon endlessly, their thunder the language of gods in argument. The land changes with every sleep. Sometimes it wakes to find itself surrounded by forests of bone-white trees that whisper in chorus. Sometimes by plains of glass that remember faces. Once, it wakes at the edge of a crater filled with luminous water that tastes of tears and circuitry. It drinks, and for a moment, memories flood back. A mother's hand that may never have existed. A name spoken in a voice that breaks the heart. Then, silence. The planet teaches survival not through benevolence, but through repetition. Pain, hunger, exhaustion, all lessons in endurance. The child learns to walk between storms, to read the tremor of the earth and the scent of the wind. It learns which fluids burn and which heal, which creatures scream in warning, and which in lure. The body adapts, muscles growing lean, skin thickening with subtle scales that shimmer under lightning. The shard in its chest vibrates more often now, aligning with unseen pulses beneath the ground. Sometimes voices reach it from nowhere, soft murmurs carried on the wind. fragments of speech that feel half-remembered. Child of dust, echo of faith. It turns, searching for speakers, but finds only the landscape shifting in silent amusement. The voices fade, leaving behind the faint taste of electricity and blood. One evening, if such divisions still hold meaning, the ground splits without warning. The child stumbles, falling into a pit of darkness. The descent feels endless, the air growing thick and hot. When it lands, it does so on something soft that shifts beneath its weight. The walls glow faintly, a wet, pulsating light that reveals shapes. Humanoid, half-formed, embedded in the flesh of the cavern. Some twitch, some whisper prayers in languages that no longer remember their own grammar. A low sound rises from below, the rhythmic thud of something massive breathing. The cavern shudders. The child moves toward the noise, stepping carefully between the embedded forms. The air grows heavier, the scent of promethium and rot mingling. Then it sees it, a colossal shape coiled in the dark, part machine, part beast, its form bound by chains of blackened metal. It exhales and the walls tremble. The thing speaks without opening its mouth. Another thought, it rumbles. Another echo. The world never stops birthing itself. The child's pulse quickens. What are you? Memory, it replies. I was a war engine once, a titan of Mars, blessed by the omnicia. When the veil tore, I fell. The flesh welcomed me. Now I breathe for the world. The child stares, half in awe, half in pity. Do you suffer? The titan's laughter is slow, metallic. Suffering is a measure of difference. There is no difference left. I am what I am. It shifts slightly and the ground ripples in response. You carry something, it says, gaze turning inward into the child. A relic of the old truth. It hums against my dreams. The child touches the shard beneath its skin. It was given to me. Yes, the titan murmurs. By a ghost. By one who remembered logic in a place of madness. Keep it close, child. The world fears what cannot be absorbed. What does it do? It remembers, the titan says simply, and memory is rebellion. The cavern shakes, the air thickening with the scent of ozone. The titan lowers its head, eyes dimming. Go now, it whispers. The world stirs. It dislikes when its children linger with the dead. The ground convulses and the child runs. The tunnel behind collapses, flesh sealing over like a healing wound. When it finally reaches the surface, the air is burning red, the sky twisting with auroras of blood and gold. The shard in its chest thrums like a heart. The hunger returns, deeper this time. Not for food, not even for survival, but for meaning, to understand what this endless cycle serves. The storms rage, and within their thunder, it hears laughter again, distant, patient, and cruel. The gods watch as they always do. The child looks toward the horizon where the storms gather in spirals around a single dark shape. A structure impossibly tall, piercing the clouds. It glows faintly with internal fire, each pulse echoing through the ground like a heartbeat. The child begins to walk toward it, slow but certain. There is no other direction left. And behind, far beneath the ground, the world dreams louder, reshaping itself in anticipation. The walk toward the distant structure becomes a pilgrimage, though the child does not yet know the word. Every step brings change. The air thickens with heat. The soil begins to hum, and the horizon breathes as if the planet itself is watching. The shard beneath the skin pulses in rhythm with the land, drawing the child onward like a compass of living light. The wind tastes of metal and burnt oil, the remnants of industry mingled with decay. There is no night, only the dimming of one storm before the next begins. As the child nears, it sees that the tower is not a building but a wound in the world, a spire of bone and brass erupting from the ground, twisting endlessly toward the sky. Great chains anchor it into the crust, humming with suppressed energy. Lightning dances along its ridges and voices leak from its sides, some chanting, some screaming, others whispering lullabies in machine code. The structure breathes. Its surface expands and contracts, exhaling a mist that smells faintly of human blood and ozone. The child approaches the base, where the earth is slick with viscous runoff. Pools of liquid mirror reflect the sky above, and in each reflection the storm moves differently, as though time is fractured here. Shapes move in those mirrored depths. Faces, eyes, and skeletal hands pressing outward before dissolving again. The shard within the child's chest hums so loudly it aches. It senses resonance, recognition. Something moves beside the tower. Figures, dozens, maybe hundreds, kneel in the mud, their bodies twisted by mutation and worship alike. They wear remnants of armor, tattered robes, or nothing at all, their skin carved with glyphs that glow faintly under the stormlight. Each of them faces the tower, heads bowed, hands pressed to the earth in rhythm. Their chanting is low, guttural, endless. The child steps closer, unnoticed. The words form patterns that hover at the edge of comprehension, syllables not meant for mortal tongues, but their cadence feels ancient, as though echoing from before humanity had shape. Suddenly the ground trembles. The tower releases a bellow of sound that ripples through flesh and thought alike. The worshippers convulse, some screaming in ecstasy, others weeping openly as their skin blossoms with new mutations. Wings tear through shoulders, extra mouths form and begin their own prayers. The air crackles with power, and the child feels it crawl beneath its skin, rewriting everything it touches. It clenches its fists, trying to resist the pull, the intoxicating sense of surrender that thrums in the air. A hand grips its shoulder. "Don't move." The voice is low, human, alive. The child turns and sees a figure cloaked in black, half hidden beneath a hood. The stranger's face is marked by scars, real, not ritual. A single augmetic eye glows faintly. "You're not one of them," the stranger says, studying the shard's glow through the fabric. "Good, then you might survive." The child stares, uncertain. "Who are you?" "Forgotten," the stranger replies. "A name is a dangerous thing here." He glances toward the tower. That thing feeds on identity, on belief. The faithful think they worship a god. They're wrong. They're part of its digestion. The child looks back at the kneeling forms, their bodies writhing as the tower hums louder. "What is it?" "A remnant," he says. "Something left behind when this world crossed the line between flesh and machine. Once, it was a generator. Now it's a throat." The child doesn't understand. "A throat?" He nods. "It speaks into the warp, or listens, or both. The difference is meaningless now." He begins to walk away, motioning for the child to follow. "Come. The storms will shift soon, and when they do, this valley will eat itself." They move into the shelter of a collapsed structure, perhaps once part of an old manufactorum. Rusted machinery lies scattered, half absorbed by creeping veins of flesh. The stranger kneels beside a broken cogitator, lighting a small flame. "You've survived longer than most," he says. "How?" "I don't know. The child answers truthfully, "I just wake up. I move." "That's enough," he says. "On this world, motion is defiance." He studies the shard's faint light. "And you carry memory. That's rarer still." The child hesitates. "The priest told me to keep it." "The priest?" The stranger's tone shifts, softening. "Then there are still those who remember what Mars was meant to be." He leans closer, his voice dropping. "Listen to me. Whatever that thing inside you is, it's proof that truth still exists. The gods cannot digest truth. They can only corrupt it, keep it hidden, even from your dreams." The storm above cracks, tearing the sky into ribbons of light. The stranger looks up. "We move at dawn," he says, "if the concept still means anything to this world." The child watches him in the dim firelight. The stranger's hands tremble slightly as he repairs a weapon made of scavenged parts, a stub pistol grafted with circuitry and teeth. His eyes, one human and one mechanical, flicker with exhaustion. "You fight," the child says quietly. "I endure," he replies. "Fighting is what comes after remembering why you endure." Outside, the tower moans again, its voice reverberating across the valley. The worshippers respond with screams of devotion, their bodies fusing further into the mud. The sound crawls through the air like disease. The child covers its ears, but the shard vibrates violently, almost in protest. The stranger grips the child's wrist. "Ignore it. It calls to everything that remembers being human." "What does it want?" He meets the child's gaze, and for the first time, fear flickers across his expression. "Witnesses," he says. "It wants to be seen." Lightning strikes the spire, igniting its surface in crimson light. The valley shakes. The worshippers convulse as one, their cries merging into a single note, pure, terrible, ecstatic. The tower bends, stretching skyward as though reaching for something unseen. Then, without warning, silence falls. The light dies. The stranger exhales slowly. "It's fed enough for now." The child stares at the tower's shadow, still pulsing faintly in the dark. "What happens when it's hungry again?" He gives a tired smile. "Then we run faster." The storm begins to gather once more, and the scent of ozone thickens. The world shifts underfoot, ready to birth new horrors. The stranger rises, checking the horizon. The world's changing direction again. North becomes east, east becomes hunger. "Stay close." The child nods, following as the land begins to tremble. Behind them, the tower exhales a final plume of light. The sound of its breath, a whisper too faint for mortals. A word spoken in the oldest language the warp remembers. And somewhere deep inside the planet, something stirs in answer. By the time the storms subside, the world has changed again. The valley is gone, the tower vanished, and the ground stretches flat and silent beneath a sickly green haze. The child and the stranger walk for hours through fields of charred glass that crackle faintly with residual energy. Each footstep leaves a brief afterimage, a ghost of motion burned into the surface before fading. The shard in the child's chest glows softly now, not with pain, but with awareness. It pulses in response to unseen frequencies that hum through the atmosphere. The stranger keeps his eyes on the horizon. He moves like a man who has forgotten rest, each motion calculated to waste nothing. His cloak flutters in the heat wind, its edges frayed and burned, its interior lined with sigils scratched by hand. The child studies him quietly. There is something in the way he walks, a steadiness that does not belong to this world. "Where are we going?" the child asks at last. "Where the world thins," he replies. There are places where reality breathes less deeply, where the warp presses closer. If we're lucky, we'll find shelter there. The word shelter means little here. There are no buildings that stay where they are, no walls that don't whisper. But the child nods. Motion is its only anchor. Hours, or lifetimes, pass before the ground changes again. The glass gives way to soil that pulses beneath the surface, faintly luminous, as though veins of energy flow just below. In the distance, structures rise, towers, though smaller than the spire they left behind. Their shapes shift subtly, impossible angles melting into each other. The stranger slows. "We're close," he says. "This place is old. Older than the storms, maybe older than the corruption itself." As they approach, the air grows colder. The hum of the planet fades, replaced by a low silence that feels unnatural, oppressive. The towers stand around a vast crater filled with fog. Strange symbols are carved into the ground, glowing faintly with a light that flickers between gold and red. The child feels its heart stutter. "What is this place?" The stranger's voice drops to a whisper. A memory or a warning. They descend the slope cautiously. The fog is thick, clinging, carrying the scent of burnt incense and oil. At the center of the crater stands a ruin, a broken cathedral, its walls half melted, its once sacred arches now blackened by time and heat. Fragments of statues lie scattered, robed figures, angels, warriors, all eroded to anonymity. The child kneels beside one fallen head and brushes away the ash. Beneath, faint lines remain, a halo, and eyes carved with something like sorrow. The shard in its chest vibrates violently. The child gasps as flashes of memory flood through. Cathedrals of light, hymns sung in harmony, the thunder of engines and faith. The Emperor's name rises unbidden, a whisper at the edge of consciousness. Then the vision collapses, and the ruin returns to silence. The stranger watches. "It remembers him," he says softly. "This world was once his." "Then why did he leave it?" "He never left," the stranger replies. "We did." A sound interrupts them, faint at first, then growing louder. Footsteps. The child turns. Figures emerge from the fog, their armor cracked and blackened, their faces hidden by masks of gold. They move with solemn precision, carrying weapons that hum faintly with dormant power. The stranger tenses, reaching for his pistol. "Don't," he whispers. "They're echoes." The nearest figure stops before them. Its visor reflects the stormlight, empty yet infinite. When it speaks, the voice is a whisper of static and prayer. "Pilgrims," it says. "The flesh remembers, the soul remains." The child stares, trembling. "Are you alive?" The figure tilts its head as though considering the question. "We were the custodians of faith," it says. "We guarded the memory of the throne. When the light faded, we remained to bear witness. Now we are the memory itself." The stranger lowers his weapon, slowly. "Ghosts," he murmurs, bound to the ruin. The figure steps closer, its movements deliberate. The world dreams of the Emperor still. Even in corruption, his name endures. But the dream has teeth. Be careful where you tread, child of flesh. The child meets the figure's empty gaze. "What do you mean?" "The hunger grows," it replies, "not of body but of faith. The warp feeds on belief. The more this world remembers, the more it devours." The shard pulses harder, resonating with the specter's voice. The figure's helm tilts toward it. "Ah." The ember still burns. "Protect it." Before the child can respond, the fog thickens, swallowing the custodians whole. Their silhouettes blur and dissolve like smoke and wind. Silence returns, heavy and absolute. The stranger exhales shakily. We need to leave, now. They ascend the crater as the ground begins to tremble. Cracks form, releasing light that bleeds like molten gold. The ruin groans, collapsing inward. The child glances back once, just as a column of light erupts skyward, piercing the clouds. For a heartbeat, the world seems frozen. Then the light fractures, scattering into 1,000 shards that rain down across the land. Each fragment burns where it lands, sprouting growths of living metal, flowers that whisper psalms before melting away. The stranger covers his face. The world's feeding again, he mutters. That place was too pure, it couldn't stand. The child watches as the light fades. Something inside aches. Not fear, not grief, but a strange, impossible nostalgia. If the Emperor still touches this world, it says softly, why does he let it suffer? The stranger looks up at the storm-choked sky, eyes hollow. Maybe he does suffer, he says. Maybe that's what keeps the stars from going out. They walk on. Behind them, the ruins sinks into the earth, consumed by silence. Ahead, the storms gather once more, lightning tracing the sigil of an open eye across the clouds. The shard in the child's chest beats slower now, but steadier, a light refusing to die. As night falls, the ground begins to hum again. The world dreams anew, hungry for what it cannot possess. And in the midst of that hunger, the child dreams too, of a throne of gold, and a whisper that feels like hope, or madness, or both. The dreams come more vividly now. Each time the child closes its eyes, it finds itself walking through corridors of light that collapse behind it, leaving trails of ash. Voices call out, some human, some divine, some both, all asking the same question in 1,000 different ways. What do you believe? But belief has no meaning here. It is a luxury of those who still think reality is permanent. The child wakes each time with the taste of blood in its mouth and the shard in its chest, glowing so bright it casts shadows across the sand. The stranger sleeps rarely. He spends the hours sharpening his weapon, murmuring old words that sound like prayers but aren't. He tells stories when the storm's quiet, fragments of the Imperium, names the child doesn't know. There were cities on Terra, he says once, staring into the distance. Endless ones, oceans of light. People looked at the sky and thought they were part of something unbreakable. He laughs, the sound brittle. Funny, isn't it? We built eternity, and eternity built us back. The child listens, though it cannot imagine such places. Its entire life has been born of motion and hunger, of worlds that breathe and skies that rot. But still, some part of it remembers the light. It clings to that fragment like a relic. Days blend into one another, though time feels thin here, stretched. The stranger begins to falter. His movements slow, his voice cracks. The air has turned poisonous, laced with glittering spores that shimmer like starlight. The child watches as lesions bloom across his arms, glowing faintly blue. It's inside me, he admits quietly. The world doesn't like things that resist it. Can't we stop it? He shakes his head. Nothing stops it. You can only keep walking until it forgets your name. He smiles faintly. You're young. It might forget you sooner. That night he tells the child of the Eye of Terror, the wound in the galaxy where reality bleeds into nightmare. He speaks of fleets swallowed whole, of worlds turned inside out by thought alone. This world, he says, voice fading, it's a reflection, a small piece of that greater madness, cut loose and left to drift. The child watches him weaken, feeling helpless. It offers him water from a living vine, but he refuses. "No," he says softly. "Let me fade while I still remember what pain means." When dawn comes, or the closest thing to it, the stranger is gone. Not dead in the way mortals die, but absorbed. His body has sunk halfway into the ground, his skin blending seamlessly with the earth, his expression peaceful. The shard in the child's chest hums low, like a dirge. The child kneels beside the half-swallowed figure. "You said to keep walking," it whispers. "So I will." It touches the soil near his hand. "The world won't remember your name, but I will." As it rises, the ground beneath its feet pulses, a slow, mournful rhythm. For a moment, the world seems to hesitate, as if listening. Then the pulse fades. The child begins to walk again, its shadow stretching long against the sickly light. The horizon grows stranger with each step. Structures rise from the fog, immense arches of black crystal that hum with impossible resonance. Between them drift fragments of metal and bone, suspended in air like thoughts unspoken. The child feels the shard vibrating violently now, as though warning. But curiosity is stronger than fear. It walks forward. At the center of the arches floats a figure, vast and translucent, its form half human, half impossible. Its eyes burn with colorless fire. The child freezes, breath caught. The figure's voice fills the air and mind alike. "You walk the line between hunger and remembrance," it says. "Why?" The child trembles. "Because I don't know how to stop." The figure tilts its head almost kindly. "Then you are closer to godhood than you think." The shard burns, searing the flesh around it. The child gasps, clutching its chest. The voice grows softer, almost compassionate. "The world wants to consume itself. You carry what it cannot. That is why it watches. That is why it feeds." "What am I?" the child asks, the words breaking. "You are the echo of a prayer that was never answered," the figure says. "And in this place, that makes you eternal." The light flares and the figure dissolves. The arches collapse inward, folding like origami, vanishing into dust. The child stands alone once more, the air still humming with that unearthly resonance. Its chest bleeds where the shard has fused deeper, the glow dim but steady. Far above, the sky opens briefly, revealing the warp beyond, endless, luminous, terrible. Within it, something vast stirs, aware for the first time in centuries of a small, persistent pulse within its dream. The laughter that follows is not cruel this time. It sounds almost proud. The child turns its gaze toward the storm and keeps walking. The world shifts, trembles, follows. The hunger remains, but so does something else. Something that feels like defiance, like the faint echo of a human heart refusing to be rewritten. And so the child walks on through hunger and silence toward the place where the world ends and the dream begins. If you find yourself drawn to these forbidden corners of the cosmos, to the stories whispered by dying Vox transmissions and lost navigators, lend your voice to ours. Like, share, and subscribe, not for the algorithmic litany of the modern age, but as a pledge that you will keep listening, that you will keep searching, that you will remember what the Imperium forbids you to see. There comes a moment when even the storms grow quiet, when the air, always trembling with fury or laughter, forgets what it was supposed to do. The child walks beneath a sky so vast it feels hollow, a dome of bleeding twilight that neither moves nor ends. The ground beneath is black glass again, cracked and humming with faint resonance, as though all the world's voices have sunk beneath the surface, whispering their confessions into the soil. The shard inside the child's chest beats steadily, a slow, deliberate pulse, like a second heart keeping rhythm with a universe that refuses to rest. It is in this silence that the voice first comes, not from above, not from within, but from everywhere. A vibration that begins in the soles of the feet and rises through the body until thought itself becomes sound. At first, the words are indistinct, a kind of breathing made language. Then they sharpen, becoming almost human. "You hear me," it says softly. The child stops walking. Its reflection stares back from the fractured glass beneath, rippling with movement that isn't its own. "Who are you?" the child asks, but the question feels small in the air, swallowed before it can travel. "Names are for the unbroken," the voice replies. "I am the pulse you stand upon, the memory that never learned to die." The child looks up. The sky shivers. Clouds stretch into spirals, forming the faint outline of a face too vast to comprehend. It doesn't look down. Rather, it perceives, folding attention around the child like gravity. "I've watched you since the pit," it murmurs. "You walk through my dreams with feet of memory. You carry something that burns." The shard pulses violently in the child's chest. "The priest gave it to me," the child whispers. "No," the voice answers, the sound like thunder spoken in sorrow. "He only reminded you it was there." The ground trembles, cracking along veins of molten light. From within the fissures rise echoes, faint outlines of faces, bodies, cities. The child sees them all at once, visions of the world's past playing across the surface like ghosts trapped in reflection. A planet once vibrant, covered in manufactura and cathedrals, humans working beneath banners of the Aquila. Then the sky tearing open, reality bleeding red, and the world convulsing into the thing it is now. The voice hums softly, almost like a lullaby. "We dreamed of gods," it says, "and gods came, but we were not ready to meet what we created. Are you the world?" "Yes," it says simply. "And no, I am the part that still remembers being alive." The child hesitates. "Why speak to me?" "Because you listen," the voice replies. "Most scream, most pray, you listen." The clouds churn faster, the air vibrating with layered harmonies of sound, some mechanical, some organic. The child feels its thoughts stretching, its perception expanding beyond the limits of flesh. The horizon curves, the sky folding inward, and for an instant it sees everything. Rivers of molten data, cities of bone, the endless labyrinth of the warp pressing against the thin veil of reality. Voices, countless and conflicting, whisper in 1,000 tongues. Oaths, curses, laughter, hymns. At the center of it all, a light, golden, radiant, immeasurably distant. The child recognizes it instinctively. The Astronomicon, the vision cracks. The world slams back into focus. The child collapses, gasping. The voice sighs, almost affectionately. "You saw too much." "What was that?" "A prayer traveling through the void," it says. "The last song of a dying god." The child looks toward the horizon where the faintest shimmer of that golden light remains, flickering against the chaos. "He's still there?" The voice hesitates. "He is. Endurance. Pain given structure. He burns so others may not fade. Even I, forgotten and forsaken, feel his heartbeat in the dark." "Then why are you dying?" The ground ripples beneath the child's feet. "Because faith is a disease," it whispers, "and I am terminal." Lightning forks across the sky, not as light, but as veins, pulsing, living, connecting the heavens to the earth. The air thickens, electric, alive. The gods of the warp do not create, the voice continues. They imitate, they feed. Each prayer you mortals give them becomes another tooth in their endless hunger. I wanted to remember beauty, but beauty here decays into worship, and worship becomes appetite. The child listens, breath shallow. Then why keep dreaming? Because something must remember what it meant to be human, the voice says softly, even if only as a ghost. The shard burns hot now, almost unbearable. The child presses a hand to its chest. The pulse within synchronizes with the rhythm of the voice. You're inside me, it realizes. I always was, the voice answers. You are a cell of my thought, a heartbeat I exiled into motion. You carry what I cannot hold, a fragment of light I once tried to protect. The world shakes, as if straining against itself. The clouds twist into vortices, the horizon bending until sky and ground meet in impossible curves. Others will come, the voice says. They will try to claim you. They will call themselves prophets, machines, or gods. Do not listen. They will promise meaning. Meaning is a chain. What should I do? The child asks. The voice fades, its tone tender and terrible all at once. Keep walking. Remember me. When the stars forget their names, someone must speak them again. Then the silence returns, but it is not empty. It hums with the memory of the voice, the way heat lingers after flame. The child breathes slowly, feeling the pulse of the world beneath its feet. It is no longer just sound, it is language. The sky above flickers once, as if blinking, and then the world begins to move again. Hills rise, valleys shift. Rivers of molten light crawl toward the horizon. The planet exhales, and somewhere deep in its endless dreaming heart, something changes. A new pattern, a new rhythm, born from the brief communion with one small piece of its lost humanity. The child stands, trembling but alive, and begins to walk again. The shard beats quietly, each pulse an echo of the world's voice. The hunger is still there, but now it hums with purpose. The child walks for days beneath the unmoving sky, haunted by the resonance of that vast, intimate voice. Every vibration of the ground feels like a word, every whisper of wind a thought trying to take shape. Sometimes it imagines that the planet breathes in time with it. Other times it feels the opposite, that it has become part of the planet's lungs, that each breath it draws feeds something too large to imagine. The shard in its chest is quieter now, but not dormant. It hums a single tone that never quite resolves, as though waiting for an answer from something beyond sound. The landscape begins to change again, subtly at first. The glass planes fracture into tessellated patterns that move when unobserved. Shadows lengthen in ways that ignore the angle of light. Structures emerge on the horizon, spires of obsidian, bone, and rusted steel that seem to have grown rather than been built. At their bases, the ground pulses with faint bioluminescence, forming rivers of light that flow uphill, vanishing into the clouds. The child follows those currents. The world seems to want it there. As it walks, the air fills with the faint murmur of chanting. Voices countless and distant, speaking in overlapping cadences that fall into and out of rhythm. The words are indecipherable, but the emotion behind them is clear. Adoration, fear, longing. The language of devotion, stripped of meaning. The closer the child draws to the spires, the louder the sound becomes. until it can feel the vibrations in its teeth. At the foot of the largest spire, it finds them. A congregation of figures, kneeling in concentric circles around a pit of molten glass. They are human or close to it, but their forms have been rewritten by generations of worship. Some have wings made of translucent membrane. Others possess no faces at all, their heads replaced by smooth surfaces etched with glowing sigils. The air above the pit bends, distorting light. It hums with power. The child stands at the edge, unnoticed. The worshippers sway in unison, their movements hypnotic. From the pit rises a low tone, a single note that oscillates between harmony and static. It takes a moment to realize that the sound is language, an echo of the voice that once spoke to the child, now reduced to mantra. Without thinking, the child steps forward. The nearest worshipper turns, its featureless face reflecting the shard's faint light. It bows its head in reverence or recognition. The echo, it says, its voice a dozen voices at once. The voice has returned. The congregation stirs, heads turn, murmurs ripple through the crowd. The echo walks, the dream remembers, the flesh sings again. The child steps back instinctively, but the crowd parts, making way toward the pit. The molten surface within bubbles softly, alive with reflection. Images shimmer, faces, cities, the outline of the golden figure from its dreams. The voice within the pit speaks, deeper and older than before. You carry my fragment, it says. I feel my own heartbeat within you. The child's throat tightens. You said I was a thought exiled into motion. Yes, the voice replies, rumbling through the spire and into the bones of the world. But now you return to me, and through you I remember. The worshippers fall prostrate, their voices rising in ecstatic chorus. The air vibrates until it becomes almost solid. The shard within the child's chest flares with searing light, its rhythm matching that of the pit. Pain floods through every nerve. There comes a moment when even the storms fall silent, when the world pauses between heartbeats, as though uncertain whether to continue existing. The child stands beneath a sky that feels less like distance and more like a vast eye, open and waiting. The ground is black glass again, cracked and humming with faint resonance, like the memory of thunder rather than the thing itself. The shard within the child's chest beats softly, a pulse of light that feels almost human in its insistence. It begins as a vibration, so low it could be mistaken for the blood rushing behind one's own ears. Then it becomes sound, and sound becomes language, and language becomes presence. The voice is everywhere, beneath, above, within. It does not speak to the child, it speaks through it. You hear me, it says, and the air trembles as if from breath too vast for lungs. The child halts, heart stuttering. The voice isn't an echo of thought. It's the world itself, folding its attention into a single word. Who are you? The child whispers. Names are cages, the voice replies. I am the pulse beneath your feet, the memory that has forgotten its own beginning. I am the world that dreams you. The clouds spiral, turning inward, forming the faintest suggestion of a face far too large to see whole. The sky does not darken, but deepens. Lightning crawls through the air like veins beneath translucent skin. The shard flares hot enough to sear. I've watched you, the voice murmurs, since the cradle. You are my stray thought, walking my surface, carrying what I lost when the veil broke. You burn, and I am drawn to the warmth. The child feels the pull in its bones, in the marrow of its thoughts. The ground begins to fracture, veins of molten light splitting open beneath its feet. Within those glowing wounds move shapes, echoes of cities, of bodies, of moments so ancient they ache to witness. Once, this world was human. Manufactura, cathedrals, laughter. Then came the tear in the sky, and all that was real learned how to bleed. "Are you the planet?" the child asks, though it already knows the answer. "Yes," the voice replies, "and the storm, and the silence between. I am what is left when prayer outlives God." The wind shivers, carrying whispers that sound like laughter and weeping braided together. "Why speak to me?" "Because you are not deaf," it says gently. "Most scream, most beg. You listen." The child closes its eyes. For an instant, everything collapses into light. The sky becomes an ocean of stars that scream soundlessly. It sees the warp as it truly is, an endless expanse of thought without mercy, a sea that reflects what it devours. And in that sea burns one faint beacon, the Astronomicon, golden and defiant, its light reaching even here. The vision shatters, the child collapses, gasping, the taste of iron in its mouth. "That light," it whispers, "he's still alive." "Yes," the world says, "a man of gold upon a throne of agony. His pain is the price of direction. His endurance shapes your skies. Even here I feel his pulse, though he does not feel mine." The child lifts its head. "Then why are you dying?" The voice sighs, the sound like continents moving. "Because faith is a disease, and I was once devout. You cannot inhale the warp without drowning in its promise. I tried to make beauty eternal, but beauty rotted into worship, and worship into appetite. Lightning forks across the heavens, silent and slow, each branch pulsing like a heartbeat. The gods you fear did not create," the voice continues. "They are reflections, mirrors that learn to feed on admiration. You gave them shape with every prayer whispered in fear. I was no better. I prayed to remember, and so I became memory. I prayed to feel, and so I became hunger." The shard burns again. The child gasps, clutching its chest. The heat is unbearable. "You're inside me." "I never left you," the world replies. "You were carved from my dreaming flesh and given direction by the light I could not touch. You are what remains of my first memory, a spark of order that refused to yield. You walk so I can still imagine motion." The clouds churn faster, the air dense with static. The horizon bends, curving inward until ground meets sky in a seamless arc of motionless light. "Others will find you," the voice says, lower now. "Prophets, machines, demons. They will call you savior, weapon, heir. Each name is a leash. Remember that?" "What do I do?" the child asks. "What am I supposed to be?" "Nothing," it answers. "Be nothing, and in that nothing remember me. When the stars forget their names, someone must whisper them again." The sky splits like glass, shattering into rivers of color that fall upward. For one heartbeat, the world's consciousness floods through the child's veins, ecstasy and agony indistinguishable. Every stone, every drop of rain, every prayer ever spoken surges through the small, fragile body of something that was once human. And in that unbearable clarity, the child hears the truth. The voice is not only the world, it is everything that forgot how to die. The sensation ends as abruptly as it began. The world exhales. The sky knits itself back together, leaving only faint scars of light. The voice withdraws, though its echo remains, a low vibration beneath all things. When the child opens its eyes, the landscape has changed again. The black glass planes are gone. In their place stands a labyrinth of monolithic spires, some carved from obsidian, others pulsing with veins of light. Between them flow rivers of molten reflection, each surface rippling with images of impossible things. Ships adrift in void, cities blooming in reverse, the Emperor's golden face weeping light. Drawn by instinct, the child walks toward the center. The voices return, thousands of them chanting in broken unison. The sound is intoxicating, an ocean of devotion humming with purpose. At the heart of the labyrinth lies a pit of molten glass, glowing with slow, deliberate light. Around it kneel the faithful, humans in form, but rewritten by centuries of communion. Some have no mouths, their words spoken through the air itself. Others possess wings of muscle and light. The child stands at the edge, trembling. One of the kneeling forms rises, turning toward it. Its face is smooth, featureless, yet somehow aware. The echo, it intones, the dream returns. The congregation turns as one, murmurs ripple through the air. The flesh remembers. The word walks. The child steps backward, but the crowd parts, opening a path to the molten core. From within, the same voice speaks again, but smaller now, focused, almost human. You carry my ember. Through you, I awaken. The shard flares blindingly. Pain lances through the child's chest, sharp and pure, like the strike of memory against flesh. The molten pool trembles, and from its surface rise reflections of the child itself. Countless, infinite, each one different. One crowned in light, one monstrous and devoured, one kneeling, one burning. The world's voice deepens until it becomes a vibration beneath thought. Look, it says, this is the hunger beneath the sky, the need to see, to be seen, to exist in reflection. Every god is born from this wound. The reflections collapse inward, forming a single image, a golden figure on a throne, head bowed, light bleeding from his eyes. Even he, the voice whispers, even the one you dream of. The child stumbles backward, shaking its head. No, he endures, he saves. The voice laughs, sadly, gently. He endures, yes, but salvation and torment are twins. Ask him which he chose. The shard dims suddenly, its light drawn downward toward the molten pit. The child collapses, clutching its chest. The worshippers chant louder, their voices merging into a single thunderous note. The pit rises, taking shape, forming a column of light that envelops the child. For an instant, the child sees everything again: the Emperor's pain, the warp's endless hunger, the world's dreaming loneliness, and realizes they are all the same story told through different mouths, creation eating itself in the name of remembrance. Then the light vanishes, the pit closes, the voices fall silent. The child stands alone in darkness that hums with memory. Its heart beats slow but strong. The shard's glow is faint but steady, a quiet defiance. Above, the clouds drift apart, revealing a sliver of starlight. Not gold, not red, just white. Pure, indifferent, eternal. The child stares upward, and for the first time, the voice beneath the sky says nothing at all. The storms had always followed the child like a heartbeat. But here they stopped at the horizon, as though afraid to trespass. The air was different, still heavy with glassy brightness that did not belong to nature. The ground glittered like frost, each grain a fragment of reflection, too perfect, too deliberate. The shard in the child's chest pulsed faintly, as if whispering caution, but curiosity had long since replaced fear. There was a feeling subtle yet vast, that the world had been waiting for this moment. Before the child rose the city of mirrors. It was not built but grown, an impossible bloom of geometry spiraling from the earth in fluid arcs. Towers of reflective stone curved like frozen waves, their surfaces alive with shifting images. Every wall reflected not only the sky but other times other lives. Within those reflections figures moved, echoes of moments long vanished or perhaps yet to come. The city breathed, slow and deliberate, its pulse synchronized to the planet's dreaming rhythm. At its gate stood no guards, only silence, the kind that hums faintly with thought. The child stepped forward and the gate responded, its surface rippling outward like disturbed water. Where it touched, the child's reflection split into three, each one flickering independently. One filled with light, one hollow and dark, and one that stared back with perfect stillness. The gate seemed to consider which one to let through. Then with a sound like an exhale, it parted. Inside, light had texture. It clung to the skin, warm and aware. Streets wound in impossible directions, some folding back upon themselves, others vanishing into towers that stretched endlessly upward. The air carried a faint resonance, like a choir that never stopped singing, but only in tones too low for the conscious mind to hear. The city was alive, not with hunger like the rest of the planet, but with memory. Every surface told a story. The child could see them. The lives once lived here. An adept kneeling before a shrine of circuitry. A mother singing to a child whose skin shimmered like water. A custodian in golden armor walking through a plaza that no longer existed. Each image played for an instant, then rippled away. The city was remembering itself, piece by piece. The shard burned faintly in the child's chest. It responded to the city's hum, each pulse of light synchronizing, feeding the reflections. With every step, the visions grew clearer. It saw fleets burning in orbit, saw soldiers of the Astra Militarum standing their ground as the sky turned inside out. It saw the Emperor's light flicker across galaxies, its golden radiance bleeding into crimson where the warp pressed close. The city contained it all, the sum of every witness who had ever seen and despaired. A voice rose, different from the one that had spoken before, softer, closer. It came not from the sky or the ground, but from within the walls themselves. "You've come home." The child turned. A figure was waiting tall, robed, its form shimmering like heat haze. Its face was obscured by a mask of mirrored glass, reflecting the child's own features back with faint distortion. "Who are you?" the child asked. "I'm the archivist," the figure said, voice melodic, almost kind. "I keep what the world forgets." It extended a hand. "And I've been waiting for you." The child hesitated. "Why?" The archivist tilted its head. "Because you carry the key." Its hand gestured toward the shard, the last fragment of the world before it began to dream, the light that refused to dissolve. The shard pulsed once, bright and sharp. "You want it?" "I want to preserve it," the archivist replied, stepping closer. Its mirrored mask caught the reflections of the city, multiplying them into infinity. "Without it, this world will forget entirely what it was. It will become only hunger. Memory is what separates us from the gods we fear." The child stepped back, uncertain. The voice was calm, convincing, but there was something wrong in the way its reflection bent around the edges. Too smooth, too rehearsed. "You're not real," the child whispered. The archivist paused. "Reality is a consensus," it said gently, Do you think this city exists without dreamers? I am as real as belief allows. The child's gaze wandered over the mirrored walls. The reflections had changed. They no longer showed moments of history but possibilities. The child kneeling, handing over the shard. The archivist glowing with light as it absorbed the fragment. The city collapsing into perfect, eternal stillness. The archivist saw the hesitation. You fear loss, it said, but memory is not possession, it is continuity. Give it to me and you will become part of something endless, a voice in harmony, no pain, no hunger. For a heartbeat, the offer sounded like salvation. The child could almost see it, an eternity of stillness, where the storms would never come again. Yet something in the shard rebelled. It flared violently, sending pain through every nerve. The reflections around them screamed, their images distorting into chaos. The archivist recoiled, its mask cracking. You reject the gift? It hissed, voice fracturing into dozens of overlapping tones. You would keep suffering for the sake of solitude? The child clutched its chest. If I give you this, it said through clenched teeth, nothing will remember how to fight. The archivist's form flickered, stabilizing only with effort. You misunderstand, it said, voice trembling between kindness and rage. There is no fight. There is only acceptance. The shard pulsed again, brighter, fiercer, its light flooding the hall. Every mirrored surface ignited with reflections. The priest who had given the shard, the golden figure on his throne, the stranger who had walked beside the child, the dead city that still sang. For one impossible moment, all of them spoke in unison. Remember? The archivist screamed. Its mask shattered, revealing not a face but a hollow void filled with light. The city groaned, the ground trembling as cracks spidered across its surface. You've doomed it, the archivist roared. Without containment, the dream will unravel. Then let it wake, the child whispered. The city convulsed. Towers folded inward, mirrors imploding into dust. The air filled with the sound of breaking glass and released memory. The child ran as streets dissolved beneath its feet, reflections shattering into mist. Each breath drew in fragments of other lives, joy, despair, love, terror, until every emotion felt like its own heartbeat. At the city's edge, the child looked back once. The city of mirrors was collapsing inward, yet within that ruin light still flickered, small, steady, unafraid. A new pattern was forming from the wreckage, something less perfect but more alive. The shard's light dimmed to a calm glow. The child exhaled, exhausted. For the first time, the world felt lighter, less suffocating. The voice of the planet, the one that had spoken through storms and silence alike, returned, faint but clear. Now you understand, it said. Perfection is death. Reflection is captivity. Only imperfection remembers how to change. The child smiled faintly through tears. It didn't remember learning to shed. The city vanished behind it, swallowed by dust and horizon. Ahead, the world waited, reshaping itself with every breath. The shard pulsed once more, a heartbeat of defiance in the endless dream. And somewhere above, through the endless storm, the faintest golden light flickered back in answer. Distant, dying, but still there. The storms return in silence, no thunder, no rain. Just the slow turning of a wounded sky, the color of old wounds, a shade between violet and rot. The world feels heavier now, not with threat, but with memory. It breathes slower. The child walks through a plain of shattered reflections, fragments from the dead, city of mirrors scattered like broken thoughts. Each shard catches light that doesn't exist, showing glimpses of other paths it might have walked. One where it stayed with the archivist, one where it burned, one where it never woke at all. The shard in its chest hums faintly, no longer searing but resonant. It has stopped being pain. It has become presence. The voice that had once filled the world is quiet, perhaps asleep, perhaps waiting. The silence feels deeper now, not empty but expectant. The child wonders if the planet itself is holding its breath. It walks without direction, guided only by the steady pulse beneath its ribs. The landscape shifts more slowly than before, as though tired from the act of constant rebirth. Mountains half-formed sink into themselves, rivers glow faintly, evaporating before they touch the ground. Days, if they can still be measured, pass. Hunger gnaws, but softer now, a ghost of what it once was. The child feels lighter, almost translucent, as if it is slowly being rewritten by the world. There is comfort in the exhaustion, a numbness that makes thought feel sacred again. Then on the edge of the horizon something appears, a mountain that is not a mountain, vast and smooth, black against the bleeding sky. It takes an eternity to reach it. The surface is obsidian, impossibly polished, reflecting everything except the child. The shard hums louder as it approaches, a tone of recognition and warning combined. At the mountain's base is an entrance, an archway cut into the stone, tall enough for titans, narrow enough for truth. The air that seeps from within is cool, still, and fragrant with dust older than stars. The child steps inside. The interior is endless. Columns of dark crystal rise like the spines of a sleeping god. Between them stretch bridges of light so thin they hum underfoot. At the center stands a throne carved not of gold, but of raw geometry, a shape the mind struggles to hold. Upon it sits a figure, not vast, not small, merely inevitable. It wears no crown, yet light drips from its skin like molten glass. Its face is veiled, its hands folded over its knees, in stillness so profound it feels like gravity. When it speaks, it is not through sound but through pressure, a thought that moves through the bones rather than the air. You came farther than any of them, it says, and you did not pray. The child's voice trembles. What are you? Once, it says, I was called God. Later, I was called machine. Then monster. Now I am neither. I am what remains when the name dissolves. The child takes a hesitant step forward. This world is dying. Yes, the figure answers. It is dying as all dreams must. It is what happens when belief outlives its body. The shard flares, and for a moment, the figure's veil ripples, revealing eyes not of light, but of memory, countless lives reflected within them. The child feels all of them at once. Soldiers dying in mud, mothers whispering prayers, priests burning incense before machines that no longer function. Humanity's endless cycle of hope and surrender. The figure lowers its head. They made me from their need to be seen, it says. I was born of their certainty. Every time they whispered my name, I became less of myself. The child feels its knees weaken. Then why do you still exist? Because even forgotten gods cannot forget themselves, it replies. I persist not out of power, but out of habit. The child steps closer. I met your voice in the sky. It said it was the world. The figure's tone softens. That voice was a fragment, a reflection cast when I fell asleep. It remembered being alive. I do not. It rises slowly, unfolding from the throne with impossible grace, Its height shifts as it moves, sometimes towering, sometimes human. "You carry my ember," it says, "the last heartbeat I ever had." The child touches the shard. "Then why give it to me?" "Because I could not bear it anymore," the figure whispers. "To remember what warmth was, to feel what hunger meant. I tore that part from myself and sent it into the flesh of a world. You are that exile, my last attempt at being alive." The child can barely breathe. "And now?" "Now," the figure says, "you have a choice. Return it and I will wake. This world will collapse, but I will rise again, whole, God, eternal. Or keep it and I will fade, but the world will learn to dream without me." The silence that follows feels infinite. The shard pulses violently, light spilling through the child's fingers. For a heartbeat, the temptation is unbearable. To end the wandering, to let something greater take control, to rest in certainty, even if it means losing the self. But then it remembers the priest who burned with laughter, the stranger who defied the storm, the city that chose imperfection over stillness. It remembers pain and hunger and the beauty that came from both. The shard quiets, as if understanding. The child looks up. "You said you forgot your name." "I did." "Then let it stay forgotten," the child says. "The world doesn't need another god. It needs to remember how to be alive." The figure watches, expression unreadable behind the veil. Then it nods once, slowly. "So be it." The ground trembles. Light seeps from the cracks in the crystal floor, rising in spirals that twist around them both. The figure begins to dissolve, its body breaking apart into luminescent dust. "I envy you," it whispers. "You get to end as something small." The chamber shakes. The shard burns so brightly it's blinding. The child screams, though not in pain, in release. The light surges outward, filling the temple, the world, the sky. For a moment, all existence becomes reflection. Every memory, every prayer, every heartbeat of every creature that ever lived. Then it collapses inward, quiet, final, clean. When the light fades, the throne is empty. The mountain is gone. The world is new again. The sky is still scarred, but its color is different. Clearer, almost blue. The storms are gone. The ground is cool beneath the child's feet, and the wind carries no voices. The shard remains, but it no longer glows. It is quiet, a heartbeat at rest. The child exhales and lies down on the gentle earth. For the first time, it feels the difference between silence and peace. Far above, the Astronomicon burns faintly through the void. Its light no longer feels like command, it feels like memory. A promise that, even in the darkest dream, something human endures. The child closes its eyes. The planet hums softly in reply, not with hunger, but with life. And somewhere beyond, where gods go to die, something nameless finally sleeps.